All right, so I wanted to record a quick video to talk a little bit about the new stimulus package that Congress is talking about today. Um, so just to let you know, the full text of the bill and the bill itself has not been released and they haven't voted on it yet. So all of this is subject to change, but I'm sure you have some questions, so I wanted to try to answer those as soon as possible. So I'm going to go over what we know so far, what we think is going to be included in the new bill. So let's take a look. The very first thing is direct payments to individuals. So similar to the last time they had a stimulus, they are going to be sending checks directly to taxpayers. So last time, I believe it was $1,200 per person. This time it is $600 per adult and $600 per child. So that's all based on your tax return, how many dependents you had and all that. Just keep in mind that $600 is phased out. So if your income was more than $75,000, or if you're married and it was more than $150,000, then you'll get less than the $600. And that phase out is based on your last tax return. So for most of you, that would be 2019. But keep in mind that it is actually a credit for 2020. So if it turns out that your 2020 income qualified you and you didn't get it based on your 2019 tax return, then you'd get it on the 2020 tax return as a credit. So just keep that in mind. The next thing I wanted to mention is unemployment assistance. So as you might remember, they extended the unemployment benefits. Two things really. They on the state level allowed more people to get unemployment based on self-employed individuals and things like that. So those pandemic unemployment assistance provisions will be extended through March of 2021. And in addition to that, the federal supplement, the additional $300 per week, it was $600 last time, but $300 per week will be added on top of any state assistance for anybody who goes on unemployment. So just keep that in mind, whether if you've applied for unemployment or if you know people, you have employees that have, those are the new provisions. The next thing that a lot of people are talking about is the Paycheck Protection Program, so round two of the PPP loan program. So basically, even if you got the first PPP, you can now apply for a second round, or you will be after they release this. But you do have to have fewer than 300 employees, which should be most of you. And you also need to have a 25% reduction in revenue. So that reduction is a quarter over quarter calculation, we assume. So you'd look at the second quarter of 2019 versus the second quarter of 2020, or the third quarter versus the third quarter, fourth quarter versus the fourth quarter. If in any one of those quarters you had a 25% reduction, then you should qualify. We still don't know quite yet on how you're going to prove that, what it's based on, if it's cash versus accrual, but for most of you, that should be a simple calculation, but you do need to have that reduction in revenue to apply the second time. And there was an additional provision for restaurants and hospitality industry companies. So for most people, the loan amount is based on 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. But for restaurants and hospitality companies, they're going to allow you to borrow up to 3.5 times your monthly payroll costs. So hopefully that money should last a little longer for those businesses. And another thing they added was if your loan is less than $150,000, there's going to be a really simple forgiveness application. They aren't going to ask for all of the backup that they are asking right now. It's basically a one-page form. Answer a couple questions and you should be done. So it's a much easier forgiveness application. Not sure if that's a total loan amount of 150 or if you get two separate loans of 150 if you're going to qualify, but we'll keep that in mind. And then the last part, I put a question mark because it's not 100% sure yet, but it does seem like they're going to allow businesses to deduct the PPP expenses, whereas they weren't before, and so that was going to be a taxable event for people. It does look like they're going to allow deductibility, which is good news. And then the very last thing I wanted to mention is just a small thing, but the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance programs. So if you'll remember, back when they opened applications for economic injury disaster loans, they started sending out grants to businesses that applied up to $10,000. Originally, it was supposed to be $10,000 if you applied, and it was a upfront grant that you weren't going to have to repay. But then if you later got a PPP loan, that you would have to repay it. So basically, at some point during the process, they were running out of money, and so they started sending out, instead of $10,000, they were sending out $1,000 per employee. If you had 2 employees, they were sending you $2,000. So they have changed the rules now that if you did apply and got less than $10,000, then you can reapply now and get the difference. And on top of that, there is going to be no reduction in the PPP forgiveness, so you won't have to pay it back regardless if you got a PPP or not. So it will be interesting to see how that's handled because that's a lot of businesses and that's a lot of money. But if you did get less than that $10,000, then there will be a mechanism for you to reapply to try to get the difference. So those are the main things. Like I said, this hasn't been voted on, so there might be some changes to the final legislation. So we will keep our eyes open. I'll try to send out new information as we learn about it. So probably tomorrow you'll hear from me again. But if you do have any questions, feel free to email or call us, and we'll let you know. Thanks.